Hello, everybody, and welcome to Bayou Bets for a Monday, October the 16th, 2023. We have a lot to talk about. It's going to be a fun show. Well, I guess you can define the word fun. We'll figure that out later. I'm Jim Derry, along with my friend Spencer the Guru Urquhart, and you'll have to pardon my voice. I'm a little under the weather for the second time in 3 weeks. I don't know, Spencer, is it a coincidence that it's after the Saints loss? The last time I got sick was 2 weeks ago. After the Bucs loss, it was a different kind of sick. Now I'm sick again. I can't stand the Saints losing. I don't know what's going on.
Man, I'm worried about you, Jim. I hope they don't ever lose like 50-0.
Exactly.
Oh,
you might have to roll me in the grave or something. I don't know what's going on. All right. Our topics for today are pretty simple. I think you'll understand what they are. Texans 20, Saints 13. What in the hell happened? Saints only allowed 3 points in the second half, but could not find a way to win. We're going to talk about the game, and we're going to talk about what is the problem. What is this team's major malfunction? I really don't know the answer to that. Well, maybe we do. But we're going to get into our theories. Does it even matter what our theories are? We're going to get into all that. LSU and Tulane roll on. Tulane now in charge of the AAC, and we'll finish it off with a Monday Night Football prediction and maybe a quick comment on baseball. But we don't have a whole lot of time to talk about baseball because we're going to talk about, well, we're talking about the New Orleans Saints. We're going to get right to it. We have a comment already. It's a long one. But, Mark.
Shake it up.
Man,
Shake it up.
He's appalled at the poor head coaching decisions. Why not work the middle of the field? That's a lot of stuff to go on. Trevor Penning, no question. Too slow. Literally, man, I think he typed so much, it actually ran out of room there. But, Mark, I appreciate the love. We'll start it off. Spencer, I'm going to let you go first. Doesn't even matter what the problem for this team is right now.
Yeah, because you still got everything in front of you. You still got all your goals and aspirations in front of you that you wanted as to try to make the playoffs. So to me, there is some tinkering that can be done. You can't make wholesale changes at this point. You're stuck with your head coach and quarterback, all the main things. But there are some tweaks you can make. And as Mark's saying, along the offensive line, Penning, once the rest of the guys get healthy, Penning has got to go. I don't want to see Trevor Penning for the rest of 2023 if James Hurst and Ryan Ramczyk are healthy. We'll probably have to see him Thursday night because I doubt either of them will be ready. It's going to be a rough-looking O-line. Cesar Ruiz had to get kicked out the tackle at the end with Ramczyk's
Which is not what he is at all.
Right.
He's really a center by trade.
Yep, the rookie Saldivari was at right guard. So we'll have more on the Thursday game on our we'll probably be a Wednesday show this week, and it'll be at the Dome Thursday. But yeah, it's not looking good. And as far as the offensive line, because there's so many injuries, and they clearly weren't prepared for these injuries because the depth. You're already dipping into the depth with Max Garcia, who got his first start, and now you got Saldivari probably looking at his first start. So that's clearly the number one problem. The offensive line, it is dreadful and it's hurt. So it's
by the way, I forgot to mention this, but if you don't know this already, and it's okay to mention it again, Caesars Sportsbook is the official odds partner of bet.NOLA.com. Any odds you see on our show come from our partners at Caesars Sportsbook. And a reminder, if you haven't already, subscribe to the Bayou Bets YouTube channel. That is the best way where you'll find out when we're going live, which is every Monday and Thursday at 4. And I say that, and it'll probably be Wednesday at 4 this week, our second show. Because, as we talked about, the Saints are playing on a short week against the Jacksonville Jaguars. If you want to leave any comments, we'd love to show them here on the screen. All you got to do is type them in if you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, such as Dustin did. Should DA stand in the coaches meeting? Get a show of hands, guys that could call plays. Towel boy, anybody. Can somebody do it better? I think they can. Mr. Horace is with us as well. He says, tough Saints loss. Carr made some nice throws, needs better decision-making, several critical situations. I don't deny that at all. We're going to get into Derek Carr in a little bit. But look, here's the thing. I don't know how many times to scream the same things I've been screaming for the past 3 to 4 months. It's like people want to listen to you and they hear you when you suck. When you're doing okay and you say the same things, oh, he's just being Derry Downer. He's just being Mr. Negative. I wasn't being Mr. Negative then. I was telling it the way that it is. And the way that it was and the way that it is this team, obviously, their number one problem, as bad as the coaching has been has been the offensive line. So what do the Saints do? They go out and draft Brian Brisset. That's fine. You want to draft a defensive lineman first. Okay. You think that's your number one need. I don't even really, it wasn't your number one need, but if that's what you think your number one need is, fine. But you wait to draft an offensive lineman until the 5th round, getting a guy in Nick Saldivari, and he may turn out to be a great player. He may turn out to be a good guard. We don't know yet. But you're trusting the same people who drafted Trevor Penning with a 1st-round pick, and now you're stuck with him. You went into this group went into the season thinking Trevor Penning was your answer at left tackle. Dennis Allen used the term in his post-game press conference yesterday, trial by fire. You do a trial by fire when your team sucks, when you know you're going to have a chance to have the number 1 pick in next year's NFL draft. That's when you do trial by fire. You don't do trial by fire at left tackle when your team has a chance to be something. And the further you go along with this, the further your team doesn't have a chance to be something.
Yeah, it's getting rough. And I know it's been tough on Derek Carr, but I mean, as a veteran, this is his time where he's got to rise up and make some plays here, because I know the play call has been rough. Offensive line has been rough. He hasn't been dealt a very good hand, but it just seems like, especially in that final drive, he was panicking there. I mean, it was just instead of trying to find some receivers there open just to move the chain, they're just throwing to the end zone every play. And they were sending the house to where he didn't have really the time to make those throws, and most of the throws weren't even close to even being catchable. So yeah, they're gonna have to go back to the drawing board yet again on offense, because even though they moved the ball well a lot of that game, one, the Texans defense stinks. And 2, even with that, the red zone execution was still dreadful. You've got to be able to execute in the red zone, because if not, you're just going to just keep stalling. And Blake Groupie struggled yesterday to where this offense, yeah, it may have shown a little bit of improvement, but overall, it's still very much an issue.
Here's the deal, though. I mean, and I've seen multiple people across multiple platforms wanting to blame Derek Carr, because no one had a problem with Derek Carr last week when he played and shouldn't have played 2 weeks ago. I mean, he shouldn't have played 2 weeks ago. He's still probably hurt. He was 32 of 50 for 353 yards and a touchdown. When a player is throwing down the field like he did in that last drive, when it's 1st and 10 at the 24, those are play calls. That's not what Derek Carr is saying. Those are play calls. Those were meant to be thrown like that. Derek Carr, incomplete, long left. Derek Carr, incomplete, long right. Derek Carr, incomplete, long right again. And then on 4th down, throws the interception. His only interception of the game, by the way. Derek Carr was not even one little minuscule of the problem, at least yesterday. Now, if you want to go through the course and say they shouldn't have spent that much money on Derek Carr, I don't agree with you, but at least I think there's a valid argument. But if you're talking about just yesterday in particular, where do you want to start? There are all kinds of things. The reason why he's throwing it so fast is he's afraid he's going to get put in a grave somewhere. He's afraid he's going to get killed because his offensive line is horrible. And it's obvious that the design has been to get it out of your hand as fast as possible. Most quarterbacks have 1, 2, 3, throw. Derek Carr's got 1 throw, and that's what he's gotten yesterday. His yards per completion were way up. They were up to 32 completions, 353 yards passing. It was much different than it's been the past 2 games, and they were designed to do that. So I'll give the coaching staff credit in the fact that they know that they have to throw it faster. But how bad is it that your offensive line sucks so bad that you want your quarterback, your $40 million a year quarterback, to get it out of his hands as fast as possible?
Yeah, it's pretty rough, and they've got to do more design rollouts with him, I feel like, because it's just sitting back there like that. He's going to get killed again if they don't make some adjustments there. And I feel like, though, as a veteran, he's got to do some improv and some audible out of this stuff. I mean, you got to be able to just be like, this is my team.
I don't disagree.
My team. This is my offense. I'm taking over. I mean, I don't want to open the Drew Brees rabbit hole, but it's one of those things where I felt like he did that several times. And everyone wants to give Sean Payton a lot of the credit, but I mean, Drew Brees, I feel like, bailed out Sean Payton a lot, because Sean Payton and Pete Carmichael's play calling, yeah, it was good, but especially nowadays, it's gradually trended down since around the 11 when they peaked, and it's just gotten like they haven't really kept up with the times, especially with motion. The league has way more design motion with Kyle Shanahan and coaches like that have gotten that more in the game, and Carmichael simply hasn't kept up with that, and it's showing now in an ugly way. This offense is simply not up to par.
When you throw for 64%, that is not lighting the game on fire, but it's certainly at average or better than average. So do you want average out of your $40 million a year quarterback? No, but you can't call 32 out of 50 a bad day or his fault, period. You just can't. And I've seen it all over. CJ Stroud, no one in the Texans organization. He's a rookie. I don't care. People are talking about how great he is. He was the 9th ranked passer going into yesterday. 13 to 27 for 199 yards. You know what happened yesterday? The Saints just panicked. You're right on one thing for sure. Panic. I don't think it was just Derek Carr. I think across the board, the Saints offense is panicking.
That's a good point, Joe. The defense isn't good.
Texans defense isn't. They're average though. I mean, they came into the game. I don't know what they are now, but they came in the game overall ranked 17th, which is basically right in the middle. Look, the problem is you have no consistency with play calling, no consistency from game one. They were great, 34-0, but I said last week, Spencer, that score was way overshadowed what the real game was. Again, if Tyrann Mathieu doesn't get that pick early, that pick six early in the game, that's not a 34-0 game. That's more like a 19-16, 19-14 kind of game. It's a low-scoring game. That kind of got the Saints kick-started. The Saints did everything with defense last week. This week, they looked okay offensively, but we talked about it in pre-production. If Groupie makes those 2 field goals, all Saints have to do is kick a field goal there at the end. But you bring in this rookie kicker, and you and I were both on Groupie's bandwagon. I'm not blaming the Saints for that. They wanted to go younger, but you can't sign a rookie kicker and a rookie punter. It just goes to show, I don't know that they're thinking everything through.
Well, the issue, with Groupie, too, is that they've been asking so much out of him as a rookie kicker. I mean, they've been running him out there. I think he's averaged like at least 2 to maybe 3 field goal attempts a game. I mean, they've been relying on him too much. And so he finally came back to bite him. He had been pretty solid prior to yesterday. I think he only had 1 miss prior to the 2 he had yesterday. And I know the 29-yarder was ugly, but
that was a shame.
if you'd have executed in the red zone, no one would be complaining about Blake Groupie today. If you just do your job where it counts there in the red zone, actually make those yards mean something, because I know we debated about this a while back, Jim, about the yards points thing. I mean, so what if you pile up all these yards? If you're not scoring points, it doesn't matter. I mean, 13 points. That's what the Saints scored. And
Spencer froze up a little bit. We got an interesting comment, I think, from Dustin that says, hire Gruden to come in as a senior offensive analyst for the rest of the year. Maybe. But I don't know that they're going to do that. And we talk about this team being kind of stubborn is the nice way to put it, from the top down to the bottom. And I'm not sure what's going on with Spencer's internet. We may have to pull him for a second. Let's see. If we pull him, though, then it's going to skew everything else. We'll leave him on for right now. But here's the thing. And I think what worries me more than anything is if you're not going to make any changes, I think Dennis Allen is finally starting to get it now. If you listen to his post-game press conference yesterday, the thing that I was struck by was his tone was a little bit different. If you listen to Datitude this morning, I talked about it and I played a clip. Last week or 2 weeks ago, we're not going to make any changes. There we go. Spencer's back. But 2 weeks ago, it was, we're not going to make any changes. Everything's fine. You lost 23-9, but no one cares. Or 26-9. No one cares. We're not making any changes. Last week, no one says anything because they win 34-0. This week, I don't know if you noticed, Spencer, but if you listen to the post-game press conference, it was definitely a little bit different tone. We may be willing to make changes now. I think that Dennis Allen understands that, again, Pete Carmichael, yeah, he sucks, but if he sucks, guess what? You're going down with the ship. You're all going down together.
Right, which is what came back to my point earlier about you can still make tweaks. Like, you can't start over, but you can try to make some in-season adjustments to keep the train on the track as far as still being able to reach your goal of 9 to 10 wins and a playoff berth. So all hope is not lost by any means. It's just one of those things. I just don't have much confidence because they just don't seem to be willing to make these necessary, not even big changes, just tweaks. I mean, like a different play caller. I mean, I think someone in the comments brought it up about
Robert Doyle
Ronald
says
Curry.
give Curry a chance. Look, that's like putting lipstick on a pig. I mean, I guess I don't disagree with the point of give someone else a chance because the guy you have sucks. But here's the thing. If you can't trust your offensive coordinator to call plays, then why is your offensive coordinator even here? What is he doing? I mean, why can't you fire someone in the middle of a season? I never understood that. If a guy isn't doing his job, then why can't you fire him? So if you're going to go to Ronald Curry, and again, if you want to do that, fine. But you got to fire Pete Carmichael. I know you don't want to make those kinds of decisions, and it's hard to do. But why are we holding on to someone that's worthless?
I mean, you just demote him, because I still feel like he brings something to the table. I mean, to be firing him, like you definitely can't bring in
what are you going to
brand new offensive assistant or something. I don't know. Like I think it's just he's the one that brings those are a lot of his plays in that playbook to where I feel like if you fire him, then it's like you can't come up with a whole new playbook at this point. I feel like it's just too late for that. So you got to just, to me, make a tweak rather than a big change. I mean, because they just can't learn. I mean, Carr had to learn this offense all offseason. And then if you fire Carmichael, you'd be asking him to learn.
Same offense, though. It's not going to be, they're not going to change any terminology.
But yeah.
Look, Dennis brings up, this is what I've been saying. His tone may be different. You're talking about Dennis Allen. Look, I'm trying to give him some kind of credit, but he's still doing the same thing by not doing anything. It's week 6, okay? Understand that. Look, I'm giving him some kind of credit because it is week 6. People forget, and it's easy to just go off the rails. They're 3-3. This team still has everything in front of them. You see the odds on the screen. They're plus 165 to win the NFC South. We talked to pre-production.
Still the favorite.
I know that you're not willing to put anything on it, but I tell you right now, the Saints are. We can discuss this for the next 20 minutes if you want, but the Saints are by far, and I mean by far, the best team in this division. Whether they play like they are the rest of the way, I don't know. I can't answer that. But talent-wise and just the defense alone, this team is by far the best team in this division because Tampa Bay is terrible. Baker Mayfield is terrible. Desmond Ridder couldn't hit the broadside of a barn unless, I don't know, he looks like he can throw to the other team better than he can throw to his own. At least he did yesterday. And then Carolina, we can forget them. They're 0-6. So, I mean, to me, that seems like a bargain at 165.
Yeah, I hear your points about Atlanta and Tampa Bay. I feel like Atlanta is just a team that's trending up with their defense improving and their running game with Bijan and Algier. I think they're going to find a way to get a little winning streak going. Where with the Saints, that's just, I think they'll be at about where we projected them, about 9 wins, but it's just up and down, up and down. Saints at their best, definitely the best team in the division, but Saints though they just seem to have a tendency to just really bottom out. And with that, seeing that ugly side of the Saints, there's no way I could put money on them at this point for anything. I don't even know if I'd bet them to make the playoffs at this point because, I mean, if you're going to bet them to win the division, because, I mean, if they are going to make the playoffs, it's going to be because of that. But, I mean, they just haven't shown me enough improvement. If anything, they haven't shown really any improvement from last year. They just look stuck.
Al Ray's talking about New Orleans fans deserve a team that competes for championships, not a team that wins by default. That's things you talk about in April and May and June. I mean, you don't talk about that in September and October. It is what it is now. You can't fix that now. These are things that, again, we should have gone back and fixed when the team goes 7-10, you make changes then. I'm not saying they had to make changes to Dennis Allen. I know there's a lot of people who wish they would have fired Dennis Allen. I'm not necessarily one of them. I thought Dennis Allen deserved another chance, but I don't understand what he saw in Pete Carmichael. So we can sit here and talk about Ronald Curry deserves a chance to call plays. Well, if Ronald Curry deserves a chance to call plays now, he deserved a chance to do it in April. Why are we talking about this now? This should have been done already. It's insane. Dennis talking about they've had these problems since last season. That's exactly what I'm saying. These are the same problems we talked about at the end of last year, and no one wants to make a decision. No one wants to make a change, and I just don't understand it. So, I mean, again, we could talk about changes that need to be made. What is the Saints' number one problem? I don't think it matters because the problems come from the top up, and the people at the top aren't going to make any changes. And until they do, we're going to sit here and talk about Trevor Penning sucks. Derek Carr is not good in the red zone. Pete Carmichael's awful play caller. The defense can't do anything when he needs to. Sure, we could talk about all these things all day long. But until anyone's willing to do anything about them, and not in October, you do it in the offseason, and they didn't. So why do we think they're going to do it this offseason?
Well, if they go worse than 7-10, then
they're not going to go worse than 7-10.
They'll be forced to, but
no chance. No chance.
But their defense is going to keep them in it. And that just goes to show that if you want to look at big picture, I mean, you can make a case that this offseason they shouldn't have signed Derek Carr and instead of just gone with just a rookie or some cheap veteran. I mean, just kind of just
in other words,
started a path to the rebuild.
You want him to lose on purpose?
Not necessarily.
Well, then if you do that, you lose on purpose. If you go with some rookie, because you can't get CJ Stroud, he was going to be off the board. You can't go with Anthony Richardson, by the way, who I think is not going to be any good anyway. But even if you think he's going to be great, he was going anyway. You can't go with Bryce Young. He was going anyway. So you tell me who you could have gotten that might make this team what you wanted to make it.
I mean, like the Bucks did. I mean, you bring in Baker Mayfield, you just take the chance.
That's losing on purpose.
On a cheap salary. I mean, these are professional athletes, though. I mean,
he's a professional athlete by definition because he makes money to play sports. That doesn't mean he's any good. He hasn't won anywhere. He's never going to win. He's never won anything.
Derek Carr. Baker Mayfield won a playoff game. Derek Carr never won a playoff game.
Continues to play for a team that has no offensive line. Baker Mayfield had a great offensive line in Cleveland. He's been awful since day one. He's never been anything. He had a great offensive line in Cleveland. Couldn't do anything.
And I know Zoe brought up a point about the defense there. Yeah, the defense is very good with a lot of veterans. The issue is if they get better, a little better next year, if they keep building with this, by the time they get there though, Cam Jordan's gonna be a year older. Demario Davis is gonna be a year older. Those guys are not getting any younger. They're still at a solid level. But I feel like the window with them is basically closed as far as a championship window. Yeah, they could still make the playoffs this year, but by the time this team would maybe be a championship contender, those guys are going to be out the door at that point. Okay. Then you're going to have to bring in even more young guys, and then will it be open at that point? Will you just be stuck in this cycle? And that's the issue I have, is that I feel like they're just going to be stuck in this cycle of mediocrity.
You want to talk about mediocrity? Anyone who thinks Baker Mayfield over Derek Carr is a no-brainer, you should stop watching football. Don't watch football. If you think Baker Mayfield is better than Derek Carr, you have no business watching football. Here's another question, and I know Joe's just trying to stir the pot because he knows what I think about Andy Dalton. Would Andy Dalton have put this team in a better position to win? Andy Dalton would have done the same thing he's done through his entire career, going 7-10. 8-9. So if you want to go 7-10, 8-9, Derek Carr gives you a chance to win. But you could talk about Derek Carr all day long. If you don't have anyone to protect him, you could have Drew Brees in there, the old Drew Brees. I mean, the Drew Brees from when he was at the height of his prime. It doesn't make a difference who's playing quarterback if you can't protect him. And this team can't protect him. This is something they haven't addressed. And I said it weeks and weeks ago. The Saints are one major offensive line injury away from sheer catastrophe. Guess what? They're at catastrophe right now. They might win games because they're playing teams that are awful, and now they're going to play a Jaguars team this weekend that we're going to get into in a little bit that might not even have Trevor Lawrence, and Trevor Lawrence is one of the top 3 quarterbacks they're going to play all season long, and he's average. So everything has been handed to the Saints on a platter this year, and they still can't take advantage of it. I mean, they're 3-3. I mean, but it's frustrating because this team should be 5-1. And I had someone write me earlier talk about how in Datitude I said they should be 5-1. I stand by that. But he's right. I sound like Jim Mora. Would've, could've, should've. I mean, that's kind of where we're going with this team. I think at the end of the season, if they finish 9-8, get to the playoffs, and get their ass spanked in the first round, we're going to say would've, could've, should've. And if they do that, there aren't going to be any changes because they went 9-8 and went to the playoffs.
Yeah, and that's in a way, it almost makes you think they even want them to make the playoffs. I know fans out there always say, well, the goal is the playoffs because you never know what can happen. But, man, it's like if it just gets stuck in that cycle. And to go back on this offseason, and, again, I know hindsight's 2020, but looking back on it, to me, they should have invested a lot more in the offensive line. They just weren't really in a position to bring in a quarterback like Derek Carr. The way things were shaping, they probably were just because they still had some dead money on the books. I'm pretty sure they still had some Breeze dead money there a little bit, to where it's like you probably should have just sucked it up, brought in like a Andy Dalton or Baker Mayfield, some quarterback that would make less than $10 million, and where the money you spent on Carr, spent that on a franchise left tackle.
If they wanted to do that, they have one. No one wants to mention Jameis Winston. They already have that.
Yeah,
if you wanted to do that, they could have started Jameis Winston. So, in answer to your question,
paid a left tackle, bring in the best available left tackle in the free agent market, and then maybe in 2024, if Carr's a better quarterback would become available, then make the move.
Well, it's too late now.
No, I agree. It's too late now. I'm just saying we're talking what ifs. There's a what if for y'all.
Well, I mean, what if you could talk about Winston is garbage? How do you know? How do you know Winston is garbage? How do you know? He had a season where he threw for 4,600 yards in a season. How do you know Winston is garbage? I go through this every time when somebody tells me Winston is garbage. You have no idea whether Winston is garbage or not. The point is, it's a moot point now because I don't necessarily agree with Spencer's point, but I don't think it's a ridiculous point. I think Baker Mayfield is a ridiculous point, but you already had a quarterback that was less than $10 million. You could have gone and signed 2 legitimate offensive linemen. I would say this. I don't care what anyone thinks of Jameis Winston. You can think he's garbage all you want, but if you put 2 solid offensive linemen, Jameis Winston would be better than any quarterback in the league with a real offensive line as compared to what we have now. You could put any quarterback you want behind this offensive line. He's going to stink to high heaven.
Well, yeah, that was my point.
Josh Allen back there. You could put Patrick Mahomes back there. It doesn't make a difference. I mean, Patrick Mahomes probably could do it because he could do things that normal people can't do.
Generational talent.
But yeah, in general, what I'm saying is we don't know what they would have had. You got to spend. I agree with you wholeheartedly on the fact that they should have spent the money on offensive line, but they did not have the foresight. They thought, oh, Trevor Penning, trial by fire.
In Trevor Penning.
Trial by fire.
Burned them. Yeah, fire. All right, it's burned them.
Favorite line of the week is trial by fire. We're going to get back. We're going to finish up with the Saints and give you a little thought on, because I do want to talk about Trevor Lawrence and his injury and what might be happening there. But I want to at least touch on before we go off the air, LSU, and I want to touch on Tulane very briefly. Got to talk about it. LSU, Spencer dismantles Auburn, showed the team that they can be a 48-18 victory. They've been scoring 40-some-odd points again. You see what their stats are there. Again, over 500 yards. It seems like they do it every week. Jayden Daniels, not a bum. Jayden Daniels is fantastic. 325 yards passing, 238 yards rushing. And the defense, we said that this was a great matchup for Auburn. I know you were a little scary about the 11 points. I liked giving the 11, and the reason was because of what we saw. I didn't think this team had any chance to pass on LSU, and they didn't.
Right, yeah, LSU flexed their muscle here. I was a little down on LSU heading into this one because Auburn typically plays them tough, but this is one where the more talented team simply came out and dominated. Not much else to say there.
You got Army coming up this week. LSU, obviously, as you see, a 30-point favorite. They shouldn't have any trouble with the Black Knights. I'm not telling you to lay the 30 points, but they should win that one easily. And then Alabama's on the sked in 3 weeks. Going to Tuscaloosa this year. We'll have plenty to talk about as we go forward. LSU, Alabama is in 3 weeks. They play Auburn Army this week. Then they have their bye week, and then they play Alabama the first week of November. So we're looking forward to that. El Rey saying Jayden has taken too many hits. I mean, LSU's O-line's better than the Saints O-line. We'll see how that goes. Tulane, Spencer, big win against Memphis, down trailing at one point, I think 21-10, and then they just rolled. Michael Pratt was solid again. You see the AAC standings, and really Tulane and Memphis are the top of that American Athletic Conference. I think anyone denies that. So they're in a great spot now, Spencer, to run the table, I think.
Yeah, I gotta say, Tulane, they checked all the boxes. They showed me that they're legit yet again. It's unbelievable. It's been 2 years in a row now. So Yeah, roll wave. I mean, I can't.
They only
I
allow
was kind of skeptical, because when you have a historic season like that, it's hard to repeat that. It's very rarely done. But this Tulane team looks just as good as last year, so we'll see if they can keep it going. They still got half the season, but damn, they look really strong so far.
Well, I think one of the things that's impressive is you see how many rushing yards Memphis had, 45. The Tulane defense has been absolutely outstanding. And you know what? I think as they go forward, you see they're a 20-point favorite over North Texas, who they play this week at Yulman Stadium at 2:30 in the afternoon. It should be a beautiful day for football. If you've not seen football at Yulman Stadium and you live around New Orleans area, go out there and check them out. It's going to be a beautiful weekend for football and definitely worth going out there. Okay. Coming back to this real quick. First off, let's talk about Monday Night Football predictions before we close out with the Saints. Cowboys at Chargers. This line is kind of dropped a little bit. It was Dallas -2 for most of last week. Went up briefly, very briefly, to -2.5, and then it came down to 2. And then I noticed this morning it went back down to 1.5. Spencer, I think I don't know if that's Mabel betting on the Chargers or if it's real money betting on the Chargers. To me, this isn't a game that I like either way. If I had to put money on it, I would take the Cowboys. I think they're going to bounce back strong. They've had an extra day off. I like their attitude after their loss last week. I'm not sold on the Chargers at all. I think their coaching staff is horrendous. You want to talk about bad coaching staffs. So I would take Dallas if I had to, but really this is kind of a stay away game for me.
Yeah, I feel that. Yeah, I'd probably take Dallas too because the Chargers. My best play here would be the over. I think Herbert will be able to get something going here. I know Dallas has a good defense, but Herbert's a top tier QB, so I'm thinking that Dak's going to be forced to sling it a little bit. But Tony Pollard, I think, will get going here.
Yeah.
I expect at least 1 or 2 touchdowns from him, and CD Lamb should do really well here. Chargers cornerbacks are just awful, so thinking CD has a big game here, and Dak, I think Dak leads him to the win. I'm normally a Dak hater, but I think in this spot, it's a good bounce back spot for Dallas.
I think Dak is going to have a really nice comeback week. Dak usually does well when people start talking smack about him. So I really like Dak tonight as well. If you're playing a DFS lineup and you're looking for captain's mode, I wouldn't hesitate to put Dak in that spot at all. I think that he'd be great to put in that spot because I do think he's going to have a good night. And I also agree with Spencer. If you don't want to put Dak in there and you're looking for someone else, I think CD Lamb would be a nice player to put in that spot because he's kind of had a quiet couple weeks, Spence. I think he could break out of the shell tonight.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think as far as value in that, Herbert will be more expensive. So yeah, Dak and CD would probably be the better stack value as opposed to Herbert and Keenan Allen. You're gonna have to pay up, and Cowboys have the better defense. So,
all right, let's finish it off with Saints playing a short week. Again, we're gonna have our Thursday show is gonna be on Wednesday this week, so it will be Spencer and I together once again. We will go through big bucks. I'm still really ticked off at Nick Sirianni. That little thing at the end of that game. You want to talk about coaching issues? I mean, we never talked about it, and I meant to get into it in the Saints segment, but the Saints aren't the only team with a problem with coaching. You could talk about bad coaching all you want, but even the defending NFC champion can have their issues. And Nick Sirianni, without his coordinators from last year, I think is struggling. Spencer, they make a decision yesterday. The way Hassan Reddick was playing, that Jets team wasn't going to do anything on their defense. Yet, for some unknown reason, you could have had Philly could have given the ball back to the Jets, and they would have had about a minute to go, I don't know, 60 yards to get 50 yards to get in the field goal range. Or you can do what you did and throw the ball. And I don't know what Jalen Hurts was thinking there, but just a terrible decision. And then you let them score on purpose when you could have stopped them, made them kick a field goal. You could have still had a minute left and drove down and kick a field goal. So it's not just the Saints. I've seen some really bad coaching this year in general by guys you wouldn't normally think would be doing bad jobs.
It just goes to show how hard it is to stay consistent
100%.
in this league. I mean, it's so tough. I mean,
100%.
the Eagles had on my teaser, felt good about it, and then they just gave it away. So, yeah.
Anybody could do it. And then the Giants almost beat the Bills last night. I mean, if Tyrod
49ers lost.
Yeah, 49ers lose to Cleveland. Someone here predicted that. I'm not sure. He's somewhere around. I don't know where he is. But anyway, all right, let's finish it up tonight with Jags. Talking about Jags, Saints, and a little preview of what we're going to be talking about on Wednesday. If you haven't heard, Trevor Lawrence has a knee injury. He is considered, quote, day-to-day. He is having some soreness in his knee. He injured it late in the fourth quarter against the Colts yesterday. Not really sure why he was in the game, probably anyway, since they were winning by 3 touchdowns at the time. But a short week. I'm going to give you a little heads up. I have not done my full, thorough go-through here, but I think I like the Saints this week, and I'm going to tell you why. The Jaguars, coming off the 2 weeks they spent in London, then they come home, play an emotional game against a division opponent. Now have to turn around, go on the road on a short week, potentially without their starting quarterback. Saints -3. I don't think that's the end of where that stops going up.
Yeah, this is an interesting line here because, there's a chance Trevor Lawrence doesn't play. So, you could get if you like the Saints, you could probably get them now because, they might.
Get them now.
Yeah, get them now if you like them. I don't know. I mean, C.J. Beathard, he's a backup for the Jags. I mean, he's not great, but he's also not one of the worst backups. He's probably about average for a backup. And the thing that scares me in this spot for the Saints is it's just how bad the offensive line is going to be against the Jags defense. That can get to the quarterback. I mean, Josh Allen,
that's why I like
Trayvon Walker. So, the under is probably a good play. It would be week the 13th in a row that a Saints game goes under. So, I'm not going to bet against that trend. And, right now, even with, to me, there's probably going to be value on the Jags because I've been a Trevor Lawrence truther.
Yeah, truther isn't the word I would put. A fanboy.
Helped me win a Po' Boy. Helped me win a Po' Boy last year. But I think my point here is, though, that with C.J. Beathard, it's not like Trevor Lawrence been throwing for a whole lot of yards this year. He's been solid, but ETN's really been the strength of that offense. They've been able to run the football and play defense. So, to me, Lawrence's absence isn't quite as bad as most are going to expect it to be. So, to me, the Jags are going to end up a value.
I think the Saints defense is going to be mighty ticked off this week. I think they're going to play one of their best games of the year, and I'm including the New England Patriots game there. Dennis, all right, look, I'm with you, but you don't have to be a hater. The Jaguars can score 10 points and still beat the Saints with D8. Let's be realistic, okay, guys? When we want to hate, go ahead. I mean, obviously there's reason to be pissed off about what the Saints did yesterday. I'm mad too. I could be a fan sitting on my couch like everyone else. When I'm not in the dome, I'm a fan. If I'm sitting on my couch, I'm a fan. I don't like it either. It's much more fun to cover a team that wins. But let's be realistic. The Saints, they only give up 10 points, they're going to win. Okay? I think 19 times out of 20, or maybe 18 times out of 20, which would be 9 out of 10, by the way. I think that the Saints are going to win if they give up 10 points. So we'll see. Look, my opinion is this. It's a good matchup for the Saints in the fact of if Trevor Lawrence is banged up, and for all the reasons that I said. I'm a big trends guy, and I tell you, people forget, and we could sit here, and one thing we didn't mention in the Saints' favor, they played 4 out of 5 games on the road. That is a really hard thing to do. I had to go back. The last time the Saints played 4 out of 5 games on the road, 2013. It was 10 years ago. So to put them in a scheduling position to where they play 4 out of 5 on the road, it sucks. I mean, so the rest of their schedule, it gets easier after this. It really does. So I like the Saints this week. We'll see if I change my mind by Wednesday. But I think they'll bounce back, and then we can talk about up and down Saints, because I don't think unless they score 30 points, Spence, I don't think anyone's going to give them a whole lot of credit no matter what they do.
Yeah, it's just, the DA is just kind of, even if they win here.
Hang on. Don't get too frustrated. See, that's the whole thing. And, one thing that Sean Payton was really good at, he was good at a lot of things. I give him grief, but the Saints never got too down after a loss, and they never got too high after a win. And I think part of the problem here is I think that the Saints maybe got a little bit too big for their britches after winning 34-0. No one wants to mention that. I thought it was a bad spot for the Saints going on the road in back-to-back weeks against the Texans team that I think is getting underrated, and maybe even a rookie quarterback that I underrated a little bit. I'm still not sold on C.J. Stroud, but it just wasn't a great spot because they have really good physical receivers. Saints can struggle when you got physical receivers, as long as you got somebody to throw to them. Just wasn't a good spot for them. All right, final thoughts for the day. Again, we're going to talk a whole lot more about this. I'm about to lose my voice, so we're going to close out the show. We'll be back on Wednesday this week instead of Thursday. Also, I believe Datitude is probably going to be Wednesday morning as well, working on some details with Larry Holder. We'll see how that goes. So Final thoughts for the day, Spence. What you got? Or did we lose Spencer? Maybe it's a good thing we're ending the show. See? I knew it was coming. We're ending the show. My final thoughts is it's time to go. I've been as negative as I could be for the day. I believe what I say. I don't think anyone should be too down after a loss and too high after a win. It is what it is. It was a bad spot for the Saints. They look bad. They've looked bad in spots, and they've looked okay in spots. So let's see what they do over the course of the next couple of weeks. I think we'll learn a lot this week at home against Jacksonville in a short week, going to Indy against Gardner Minshew in a really good running game. We'll see what happens then. We'll see you on Wednesday. Hope you can come back. Everyone have a wonderful rest of your Monday and a Tuesday, and we'll see you in a couple days.